On this glorious winter afternoon, I just sat down with my favorite tea. It's a wild orange Tazo tea, giving you my most important intel. And I want to welcome you here into, I like to call my Zoom room my sparkly Maha, my great Zoom room. I want to welcome you here as a female creator, creatress, as I like to coin it, and someone who is on a path of breath, movement, and creativity and embodied living, teaching, living the life that you want to live that looks like you and only you, a life that's personal, intimate to you. And being a creatress and so many things for me. But what I wanted to convey today is this aspect of holding space for others as an art. And I want to make that kind of a mini class, and really the crux, of what the Creatress Path Mentorship is all about. But first, I just need to take just one more little sip of my tea here as I'm about to share really um, golden nuggets, if you will, of the divine feminine path and of really embodying our light and embodying our inner radiance. And this mentorship means a lot for me because it is high stake level. I feel it's like the highest way we can really emanate our light is through devotion and presence and how we move in this world. And this incredible, and I really do think if you're even listening to this video, this work you haven't chose it, it chose you, and you feel it's part of your mission and your purpose and your fire. You have something to share with others. You have something you want to transmit, and you've always known this. And now it's just, okay, how do I execute it? How do I make myself visible? How do I share what I want to share with the world? And for me in my life, it's been art and yoga and grief and self-expression and dance and, mindful art and small daily acts of bravery and being able to host groups of women. And in the Creatress path, I share my tips, but because the group is so small, we're gonna make it so personal and specific to you. So I want to talk about how holding space really is an art. And for me, that really start with setting intentions. And still to this day, I go in, attend because I'm a student before I'm a teacher. I attend retreats or yoga classes, and the teacher does not set intentions. And that should be the first and foremost. This is what will hold, and we talk about holding space, which is always like, which is always a term that's always kind of got me a little bit because I think we all know what that means, holding space. But I think what we need to speak about more is how we create structures within the space that creates the safety and integrity we all seek. And it starts by intentions. And when you set an intentions within your studentships, within your group, you are first and foremost being kind. Brene Brown has the great quote that says, clear is kind. And so it states what's going to happen here for this hour. And it makes it just less of a 2D experience and more of a, not more, a 3D experience where this is this is what the vibe is going to be about, everybody. This is the frequency that we're going for. And even, and I've said this in all my mentorship, even if the intention is let's all breathe together consciously, that's an intention. Um, but we fail to think that's important. And I think that's where the mistake is. And so to be specific with our intention, and I think, with the years that go by, I just realize just how specific I've gotten. And because I've gotten so specific, the potency of my groups, the magic of my group has gotten so much, so much amplified because first of all, I live my own teachings. So I'm a walking inspiration for what I'm speaking about, what I'm quote unquote preaching. Um, but also it's specific. And I think this intention, this specificity, really speak to every sankalpa you'll ever set to yourself. So sankalpa is a yoga word, a Sanskrit word that means your heart's deepest desires. And as creatresses, we become masters of we become masters of our heart's deepest desire because we live inside our dharmas, we live inside our purpose, and we are able to receive what's given to us in this lifetime and make that transmit that into our teachings. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's not separate from us, it's inside us. We live it. So intentions are so important, to the spiritual world, the spirit world, the soul world, because these are really abstract. When we think about soul connection programs, for example, soul connection programs of any kind is a descent, and spiritual programs of any kind is an ascent. So hopefully there's a bit of both in what you are, in you are offering, whether it be your circles, whether it be, and I find also this is what is missing. Like, I still see programs that are like all about just rising and da da da, and and nobody talks about the shadow. Like, what was happening? What? This is not, we need to be way more specific. Um, and inside Creatress, I give you guidelines, I give you tools, and from that mock plan, you run with it and you make it your own. And so, we'll talk about mock class plan, mock hosting workshop plans. We'll talk about mock retreat plans and make that structure really what, like, you shouldn't feel, I mean, nervous slash excited. I always think when I'm nervous, I'm excited now anyways. But, because the structures are in place and your heart's deepest desire and you have your intention, everything lives from that. And this is why also I call this program an art initiation, a symbol initiation, because again, we're missing the point. Nobody's teaching with art, nobody's teaching with symbol. And this is literally what holds the space is the art of it. We need to know that we need to know our creators. I still meet yoga teachers that says they're not creative. This is a real problem. This is a real problem because all your spaces, they're meant to be art. You are a creatress because everything that weaves out of you is art. So it elevates the space, your awareness of that, you know. And so, in the Creatress path, we'll do a lot of connecting the dot exercise. So, and it starts with you. Of course, it starts with you. How will you set, intentions for your class? Hopefully, those will be intentions that you've already set for yourself. Correct? When I first started, like a decade ago, almost 15 years ago, I used to run these really simple 21 days. I used to call them creative leaps, and they were all online. And so that, that was hosting, I was hosting a group. I was, the faucet on which, and I always think of myself as a faucet. I'm the faucet on which the water runs, and the water is my students. And, of course I needed myself to have done the 21 day before I taught that, right? I feel it's like self-explanatory, but I still sense that a lot of us that are teachers are not living our truth, are not living our teachings, and the teachings feels separate. I'm so in tune to that now I instantly know when the integrity is not there. Um, and so we'll do a lot of connecting the dots on, widening our lens on what that means to holding, being able to hold space and that make that an art. And this is another thing I want to debunk. We think we need more skills. Like, oh, I need another training. And the more I know, the more confident I will feel about holding space. And no, it's not more, it's more you are able to, the capacity of you to hold presence within yourself is first before any information, before any PhD you might get, before any books you might get. It's simply being with your own humanity. This is so important because I meet a lot of women, and I myself, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I'm actually like genuinely interested and curious, and I wish I could do so many courses, and I want to learn, and it does add to my repertoire for sure to know things. But at the end of the day, I need to be in the field. I need to be, my heart is in it, my hands are in it, my body is in it because that's literally my tool from which I teach. I'm also part of a space. I'm also part of the resonance. So, in Creatress Path, we will really get to study, well, first of all, use intentions for ourselves, but connect the symbols that we use, like widen our lens on sacred symbol studies, on intention studies, on Sankalpa studies, and connect it with how can I connect intentions with stories or poetries or quote or art. If you teach yoga with postures, like how can I make an experience meaningful that makes sense? Um, and I have a background in theater, and that's really helped me when it comes to structuring, even like connecting the symbols, um, like symbols to space, to frequency, and to beauty. Whenever we watch a good movie, it's like it's specific, and there's bones to, there's a storyline throughout. It makes sense. Um, I didn't watch the movie, but I just saw clips of the Wuthering Heights with Margot Robbie, and I don't know the name of the actor. But you know what? Even our press conference, she was dressing the same colors that her role was in. Like for me, that's like the art of connecting the dots right there. Like it's not that she's in her character anymore, but that's what she represents as she's doing her press conference. And again, like this for me is the part that we're missing in the way that simple yoga classes are taught these days. We're missing the beauty, we're missing the resonance, we're missing the frequency. And sure, the yoga itself is magic, but we can even make it more potent um, by living it. And I think in that way, really feeling in line with our purpose and our dharmas, and just illuminating others by simply being ourselves. that feels so powerful to me. It's not something separate, and it's not um, a persona that you hold. It's like you being so you um, that you affect others in your authenticity. So again, like stop putting so much emphasis on like, I need more information. I need to know da da da, and placing more information and more attention on our presence, on the frequency that we hold, on how we carry ourselves. What we are like knowing that's for me, like that's the most highest job of the creatress. Like, how do I carry myself? How do I, how can I be so embodied within myself that I don't even need to speak? And when people look at me, they are inspired. That's for me, it's knowing you're a creatress. Um, and so having, that awareness and your relationship with art of the world. And it's again, it starts with you. One of my first symbol that still impacts my life today, it's the meaning of my name. My name is Estelle. It means coming from a star. And so the symbol of the star has always been like I collect star. My brand is like the star, and that's a symbol of every day that's really impacted my life, how I live my life. And so, within Creatress, like for sure you will be assigned some symbol, but also like my utmost wish is that within it you get to uncover what's always been inside you, and the symbols within your life, because you've already been affected by symbol. You just need to wake up to that. And it's perfect because most of the spaces that we create, whether it be on retreats, whether it be a somatic experience, one-on-ones, it's literally what we're there to do. We're there to help others like wake up, to what's already in front of them. Um, and so yeah, so within the creatress, the holding space as an art, we'll talk a lot about beauty and about resonance and how we can heighten the magic of our space. And will you be surprised when, of course, it starts with your own space. And of course, I'm totally aware not everyone gets to have an art and yoga studio. But we do get to have corners of our houses that can look like us and only us. And as creatresses, we are aware of what we surround ourselves with, we become. It's that easy. And so art becomes really completely powerful, not only because it holds what words cannot hold. So we're talking about primitive, we're talking about like the building blocks of the universe. But we know it can be visual anchors for us and anchoring not just ourselves, but with our group. And so, we'll talk about how can we make our spaces um, in terms of like how can we create more atmospheric beauty of our space. And we don't talk about that enough, even like my yoga teacher training, no one told me to have fun with what I wore during my yoga class. And I realized pretty early on, I was like, oh my God, everybody's looking at me. Like, I want them to look at me and like they're gonna, what I wear is gonna affect them. Literally. So why shouldn't I play with that? Why shouldn't like enhance, their experience by to working with like what's spontaneous, what's fun, what's playful? Because that's what you're here also to do, to loosen up, to loosen them up, right? It's for them to become more fluid and less, and less rigid. And we all have our style. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to start dressing like a clown. It has nothing to do with that. But how can you enhance the atmospheric beauty, of your space? So we'll talk about with that also in terms of your sankalpa symbols. this is, you'll see when you start making those connections, your world just blows up. Um, I also want to talk about how the body, how as space older, like the inner landscape of the one who's creating the space. And again, like moving away from like, and I think that's what I learned the most, and like some of the biggest mistakes that I made like early on is I thought I was there, I was gonna fix people. And it's okay, like I learned from that. But you know, I'm not there to fix people. Like they need to do that themselves. So how can I create a space that's congruent for people to meet themselves fully? So the space is really more important. And I'm included in that space. Like my body becomes the space, right? So my body needs to be clear. And we'll talk about that in terms of like you need to be resourced. How do I do that? You need to feel baseline, healthy, radiant. Um, and yeah, and I want to share, how I do that. Because I know I've learned from knowing how, other space holders like do it. Once I learned really clearly how much energy I could give, and it's not a lot. It helped me like, make my schedule, create my retreats. Um, Yeah, that's been just so, so, so important. So again, this like rephrase where holding space is not about skills. I have a master's in counseling, and I don't believe you need a master's to be able to hold space for other people. I think it's a frequency, it's an energy, it's relational. And we need to bring in art and symbol because this will reinforce the potency and how tight and contained your space is. And we need to start thinking of our bodies as part of the space, not just our brains, not just what we know, but really making our bodies. So, Creatress is really about discovering your body in terms of earth and in terms of fire. Um, And, I'm hoping you've already dabbled a bit in how to the eros of it all, I call this the mermaid body, how to get into your body that surrenders. Um, because we need that. That's part of being present with what's what's being said or what's being shared or vulnerability and tenderness of others. So I want to talk about that, but in essence, the art of holding space is really part of the presence that we can hold for ourselves. And, I practice this through the BMC's breath movement and creativity. So, entering the Creatress program, it is high stake. A lot is at stake here because you're claiming yourself as an embodied leader. An embodied leader for me is one who, first and foremost, doesn't have all the PhDs. And I value PhDs, okay? So it's not, don't say I don't value school because I do, and I have many degrees. But is someone who can be in presence with their own shadows and their own light as well. So really making presence, radiance, luminosity, heart spark, really the primary tool in how you will host your space. That's for me like the top creatress, like care, attention, concerns, really. Um, and so really it's about really like you turning back. You can only teach people how to self-regulate themselves as if you know what works for you, how you self-regulate yourself. So, it's really, and I think for me, the leaders that don't work is the leader that like they're trying to prove something to me. That doesn't work for me. I want somebody who's humane. Like, show me your humanity. Like, show me you're vulnerable. Like, what did you go through? Like, what did you survive? And yeah, like less proving and more transformation. I think we're going there in the world. How to lead with the heart is not, I was really taught, like, even growing up in the 80s and the 90s, like, someone said, and a teacher, like, couldn't show any emotion. I don't think I don't think that's true anymore. Like, was it ever true? Like, the teachers that have most moved me is this teachers that have bared their souls to me. And I think, my teachers, Sally Captain, Stephanie Dos Santos, teachers that, yeah, they just shared their humanity with me. And that has moved me more than anything I've ever learned, you know? And so, and lastly, I want to talk about the structure, really feminine structure in your group, really that creating this the safety, like the safe place everybody talks about, but your structures and, again, your intention as being precise. I'm telling you right now, if you don't have an intention in your groups, maybe I don't think your groups are safe. There's a lot of happening out there that people don't set intentions, right? And like intentions and intentions, you can set intention with a word. You can set intentions with art. You can set intention with symbols, with tool of thought. Like there's the originality. I mean, it's wide here. Um, and we need to let art into our space because this will move forward what words cannot. Um, and lastly, you need to trust. I want to talk in Creatress how you need to trust the wisdom of the group. And that's something I've just learned in the past 5, 6 years, trust the space that I create. That too, I just like tighten what I serve and how I serve it. Um, and I want to talk about the long game of sustainable leadership. I don't know I don't know a lot of yoga teachers that have been able, and I talked about yoga because that's kind of been my world, but I've been able to sustain. So a lot of talk about like we need to talk about sustainability as teachers and as space holders as well. So, for we're in it for the long game. So in recap, you know, magic does not happen because you know more. It happens because you've cultivated a capacity of presence within yourself. You are able to hold presence for yourself. Therefore, you're able to hold presence for other. And I'm telling you, with presence, anything can happen in your groups. It won't matter because you're fully there present. Two, you're able to create a space. And this is my talk on beauty and resonance and soul and holding space, not just with your words and your brain, but holding space with your heart, your body, your bones. Yeah, living your teachings. We'll talk about, the inner condition of being a space holder, a lot about clarity, being clear. How do you feel clear? Um, how do you resource your nervous system? How do you regulate your field and the field of the group? We'll talk about authenticity versus performance. And this is when, vulnerability becomes an invitation. And we'll talk about structures for your containers. I'll talk about how I structure my containers. But again, I'm always open. I'm always hoping that you run and make those yours with your life learnings. Okay. And Creatress, they don't fix anybody, they illuminate. This is very, very important. um, to know. So you need to know that you're magic. You're claiming that you're a magical woman. You're someone who illuminates other. And I think you know that. I think if you're watching this video, you know you do that. You know it's innate. You know you're a luminary. And this is why we are called. This is why this word finds us because other they literally need us. And sometimes, and I've said this before, it's not work. It's not easy work. It's really hard. And sometimes it's not a contract I want, you know? So again, how do I keep with this long game? Right? And I wanted to talk about that. So, how to hold space well, again, this self-responsibility, showing up for yourself first, the devotion piece, you can only teach what you live, and the presence piece, being able to create spaces where people meet themselves because you've met yourself. Um, I am so excited for this mentorship. It feels like pioneering work in leadership and in, yeah, and the container is small. The smaller the group, the higher the frequency. Mm. So there you have it. I love you so much. I'll see you in Creatress. Bye.